So we host this conference each year with the purpose of gathering our business owners, our artists, our crafters. But we also, again, because we have such a holistic approach to tourism, we want to make sure that we don't forget about telling our story. And in telling that story, there's a journey to getting there and understanding, what is that? It's a very culturally oriented event. It's the Mawiomi part, so it's kind of like business and then transition to culture. So we also have a number of things we're trying to achieve, not just the workshops, but more of like one-to-one conversations with business owners that might need help with, a business plan or applying for a grant or something like that. So we have a set-aside room just for appointments for business owners that might want to do that. And then of course, how does the transition take place? Well, it's interesting because, as we mentioned before, culture is part of our tourism element. And when we have the cultural piece, how do we have conversations that people know that they're there for culture, but they're also there for tourism? So we have the conversation of how does culture play a role in tourism, for example, as a workshop? How does even like things like, okay, so authenticity is another one. So it's like trying to ensure that you're reaching the things that people want to talk about at the community level in the elements that you're trying to deliver at the conference level. So how you do that is when you have membership in an organization and when they sign up, you have to be strategic about how they sign up. So let's say if you're a business owner for the organization, I would tell you, okay, I want you to go to the website. There's a registration process. You press that button. There's a registration page. In the registration process, we ask you questions not just about your business, but what are your challenges? What do you see as opportunities? What would you like to have, if you went to a conference for a workshop? All those things are filled out while you're registering for the organization. So right now we have 116 members, but we have at least another 150 supporters and cultural people that are not, quote, business owners, that fill out those forms because they're part of a greater membership we have. So people would fill out different things about, what they need to hear about. And then all of those are collected on a Google form. And then we can base what we provide at the conference based on what they indicate as priorities. And they're not like fillable, they're not like pre-fillable forms you can just pick. You have to pick by 5 things that I tell you should be interested in. You actually write down the things that you'd like to, and then it collects the commonalities of those selections. Yeah. So then we base our workshops on usually the top 10 things. In this case, the top 16 things. So it's like, and really, when you have that many people filling it out, you have all this. So it's content management too, right? You can never typically deliver on everything that business owners or cultural, knowledge keepers or elders or community wants as an organization. But you can try to tackle the top 5, 10 things that, you think you can do. That all relates directly to how much funding you have in your organization's bank account to deliver on the costs involved to getting those people there, right? Because there's also cultural performers, there's also musical performers, there's also a specified culinary meal if you want to bring in, let's say, the comparison of having meatloaf to bringing in a traditional food, let's say salmon. That's going to be triple your cost, right? So those are the kind of things we think about, like, holy crap, is it worth it to have a traditional meal that, is going to be prepared this way with specialized chefs that are going to come in that are going to cost extra? Like, all those pieces are the things that we have to break down. For example, today we had a meeting, how are people registering? Are we using social media? Are we, providing, one-on-one phone calls for people that don't know how to use technology to fill in online forms. Like, how are we getting those? Like, are we calling people? Are we, like all those? So there's a communication marketing kind of like element, right? And then the other piece is like eligibility. You're like, okay, so what does eligibility mean? And, like, why is it important? Well, okay, so under the organizational bylaws, are you a Mi'kmaq person? Are you a Mi'kmaq business owner? Are you registered with the province of Nova Scotia as a business owner? All of those things have to be met. So there's like 5 or 6 things you have to meet, criteria, to make you eligible to be a member. So if 250 people register, we have to go through all those criterias to make sure that, okay, 250 people registered, but 127 are actual eligible to be members. So now you don't have 200 voters, you have 127. So the other element of hosting is you also host because you're required to host as an organization because you have to have an AGM every year, right? So now we're hosting an AGM. So we're hosting an AGM, we're hosting a banquet, we're hosting, workshops, we're hosting a cultural Maui-Omi, we're hosting all these pieces. And that's a collective of hosting a major event for Mi'kmaq people when you're including culture, business, tourism, priorities. And then on top of that, you got to be strategic about, okay, who do you want as a strategic voice to come and speak about the importance of the big picture of supporting Indigenous business for investment, for all the dollars that you need to make this happen. It's going to have to happen again next year. So how do you talk to the room and to influential people that might be in the room to say, hey, we need to really have more conversations about investment? Because we started out the first year with maybe, it was only maybe $60,000 of operating costs. It was barely half time for me with travel and all those pieces involved. Much the same as the national organization, and it grew and grew and grew. So, for example, last year we had about a $750,000 operational fund, which jumped all the way down to $500,000 this year because of government availability of funds. But we need, essentially, if you're looking at a 5-year plan for 10 point some million dollars, it's about $2 million a year. So we're actually operating at about 25-30% of where we should be. So that affects how we plan, who we plan for, numbers, the level of quality of speakers. You wouldn't think, because I'll give you an example. There's a difference between asking an average person, average business owner to present. It might cost you $500 total to have them there. A highly qualified person, to hire them with travel, you're talking $2,500. That's 10 times what, So it's really, it adds up really fast. So our budget, let's say, for example, this event is around $100,000. So it's a major event. It's industry, it's corporate, it's government, it's our people, it's funders, it's all those invites that have to take place. We're managing websites, like we're managing how we're promoting things, email distribution lists, like all these elements are part of making not just the conference happen, because it's what happens at the conference, but it's conversations and deliverables from the conference that lay out the plan for the year, or essentially the next number of years, right? So the cultural protocol piece is very important too, because we can't ever forget, as Indigenous people, who we are, and we can't forget about our process. So cultural protocols, they don't demand, they ask you to ensure you don't forget about who you are and how we do things in our community. It doesn't matter where we're in the community or whether we're in downtown Halifax. You don't change from being Mi'kmaq from your community to downtown Halifax, right? So wherever we go, we have to practice cultural protocols, which means when we have events, we have to open with a traditional gathering, prayer, elder involvement, song. Usually all of those elements take up about a good 30 minutes at the start. The problem has been industry, government, and corporate people that have wanted to work with us have often said, hey, would you like to come to our event and have an opening, and they set aside 5 minutes for that opening to take place. Cultural protocol demands that you do it in a way that you involve elders, you involve song, you involve usually typically a smudging ceremony, and that typically, if it's done with elders, usually in a number of people involved, minimum 20 to 30 minutes, minimum. So if you want to do it right, you give it at least a half hour. If they finish early, then that's bonus. We're not stuck to time. You keep going, right? So, but if anything that we are fussy about with time is making sure that protocol is honored. So you honor that by ensuring that you put that in front. So if you have a schedule that's starting at 9 and you want to make sure you honor protocol, then you back that up to start at 8:30 to make sure that protocol is done so that you can start your... So you got to be strategic about how you use your time. And then protocol always happens at the end of the day too. So you got to... Usually the start is a little longer than the end. And then the end is basically thanking people for joining, thanking for the conversations, thanking, for... There's always that connection to spirit and to culture and to prayer. So that happens at the end of the day. Usually if there's a continuation for that night, there's also a welcome from that moment to the next event that night. Could be a banquet, could be whatever it is, right? And then that happens usually morning, afternoon, evening. And then that closing that night. So this is how important it is for us to include the elders because they're always involved in those elements. So just want to make sure that you always kind of consider that if you're planning any type of culture. I think Indigenous, yes, but I think it's important to include that offering or opportunity for other cultures to have that take place if you're doing events. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that...
for educating me and us and everyone watching.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I think that's it. Oh, there was one other element I wanted to talk about on the planning side. The other important piece is making sure that you have enough people when you're working on conferences. So what typically happens is that as an executive director, and I can say that because it happens to me, is that sometimes I tend to take on way too much than I should be. The reason why that happens is if you don't find someone that has the experience and the knowledge and the quality factor to deliver on, let's say, planning, then it's going to affect how many things you can do when you're planning out your event. So if you're involved in the invitations, if you're involved in the website, if you're involved in updating people, so if you're involved in 10 things, the quality of your time is going to be thinned out. So one of the biggest things to think about is how do you find quality people that can be part of your team, and making sure that all those little things, even like who's going to be at the registration table, are they going to be by themselves? If they're by themselves, if they're running into an issue, who's going to be able to run around for them and then take care? So you need 2 people at that front, right? Communicating. How are you communicating? Are you using cell phones or radios or whatever it is? So who are you communicating to? Is there a person that's going to be a runaround to making sure, so the coordinator can't be involved in delivering the workshop because they got to coordinate, right? So all these planning elements are very important in making sure that you have enough for your team.
Ego igande ha ego gwandu dana hey hey ego igande